Hey everyone, welcome to Wellth Body Radio. I'm your host, Alicia Hamill, and I'm so glad you're here. This is our little part of the world where we get to have honest and expansive conversation about all things health and wellness. These conversations are geared towards making you rich within your mind, body, and spirit, which in turn will make your pockets rich, I promise, okay? But these are all conversations meant to empower you to regain that gut intuition and to move confidently through this messy world. Remember, this information in this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and not intended as medical advice. Okay, let's get started. Alrighty, hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I just wanted to say thank you for allowing me to talk your ear off. I hope you love it. I wanted to start this season off with a lot about me because it's my show. For educational purposes, I promise. But okay, seriously though, I still want to talk about me. How I came to be, the good, the bad, the ugly, the truth. Okay, so to start off with, we are going to be talking about disordered eating, specifically like binge eating disorder. This is my life experience. It's not intended to throw shade or guilt towards anybody else. I'm just here hoping my story helps your story. So it kind of starts off with me being like 14, 15, that 2008, 2009 era. And I remember telling my mom, I think something's wrong with me. And that I actually wished that I was anorexic just so that somebody would help me. Because like when I Googled my symptoms, like nothing came up. I didn't fit into any diagnosis. But later on, binge eating disorder becomes a diagnosis in 2013. So that's good, I guess. It definitely would have saved me a lot of headache, a lot of unknowns. But before being diagnosed, I had thought I just had a lack of self-control, that I needed more discipline. I thought I needed to work out more, tried purging, literally did everything to try and lose weight. I was always that chubby kid. I definitely was the tallest kid in my class until grade 8 out of the girls and the guys. I was sitting at like 5'11", around 180 pounds. So like my self-confidence was just so low. To clear things up specifically, because like people always think that like a binge eating disorder is just having a binge, and like everyone's like, oh, I do that. And it's like, no, you don't. Binge eating disorder, or BED for short, is not just an exaggeration of overeating. It is reoccurring binge eating episodes that are triggered by negative psychological and social problems. There we go. Okay, so first like things that I've done, like eating large amounts, even when I'm not hungry, until I feel uncomfortably full. That's when I need to like eat till. Other people sometimes eat until they vomit, like non-self-induced vomiting occurs. The other one is like, so you're subjective to loss of control over how much or what is eating. Specifically eating alone or in secret, like hiding food or storing food specifically in areas that are not the kitchen or the pantry. Some binges are even actually planned in advance, involving purchase of specific like special binge foods. And then like even the guilt and shame, disgust that follows a binge might induce self-harm for some people. And I have experienced a little bit of that, not a lot, but definitely it was not just overeating accidentally. These binges really did have a whole hold on my life, and it was absolutely terrible. I've literally thrown food into the trash to stop eating, only to dig it out and eat it anyway. Yeah. I was completely at the mercy, or what I thought was the mercy of my mind and food. It was an out-of-control spiral that I thought I wasn't sick enough to deserve help with, because I wasn't completely obese, or I wasn't, the quote-unquote fitting into like what the Google said, so I just thought I would be able, or I should be able to do this on my own to get skinny. That was my ultimate always goal. And that simply wasn't true. mental health has different degrees of severity, all which deserve attention, respect, validation. Just never let yourself think that you're not sick enough to deserve help. That kind of mentality is just another form of like quote unquote not good enough thinking. And so that's a clear indication that you should absolutely reach out for help. So overcoming my eating disorder, or Ed, sometimes I refer to him as him. That's sometimes you would give your eating disorder a personality or person. It kind of helps. But overcoming my Ed, I had to learn that mental health is physical health. It's a two-way street. It's mind, body. They always say, like, I always heard that like the body follows the mind, but I was having these out of body experiences. So like, yeah, not really. It was a very confusing time. So let's kind of go back through like a timeline of like how things progressed. So throughout high school, it was the stereotypical like drinking with friends, like introduced to alcohol. Then I started dieting, like going to the gym or going on bike rides, making a workout plan, doing crunches in my room, and then just like started hanging out with the cool kids. I was in a looking back on it now from my own personal experience, like a toxic relationship with a best friend at the time. And everything was just really overwhelming. I was binging at night after all my family would go to bed, sometimes till like 3 a.m. I would make certain things, and then I would like hide food in my closets so that when I came home from school, I would have like an outlet, like a detachment. It's kind of what I used food for, was to escape. So sneaking food from the pantry, even at friends' houses, like when they would go to bed, I would sneak food, or they were like downstairs. I would go upstairs, pretend I'm getting water, and I would get more food and I would eat something. It just brought my stress and anxiety levels like down. Irony is that it caused me more stress and anxiety, like it's a vicious circle, but it really was the sense of relief. So things carry on that way. I then go to college, I make new friends, I'm in a new environment, and things really start to look up. I buy a scale and I start working out with my new best friend. We are literally 2 peas in a pod. And one of the hot guys on campus says to me, "All you girls do is party and go to the gym." I thought I had died and gone to heaven. That was just like on the cake. I was so happy. Yep, I'm doing everything right. I would weigh myself in the AM and then go to bed weighing less than that number. That was my goal. So if I woke up weighing 180 pounds, I had to weigh 179 pounds in order to go to sleep. Otherwise, I'd have to do like some kind of exercise in my room. But that was my goal. This strategy did yield me results. Wow, I think it's just being like a kid at that point, the hormonal, just all those things working for you, your metabolism, stuff like that. I did lose 15 pounds with this strategy. I ended up graduating college 2 years later at 169 pounds. So I was so happy. My ultimate goal was always 150 pounds. So that was narrowing in. I was getting there. Then I started working at my parents' brand new diner. And anything I do say about my parents throughout this little blurb is that I do not hold anything against them. I've had really hard conversations and come full circle with a lot of the things I talk about. I absolutely love them to pieces. And they were just doing their best with the info that they had at the time. And realistically, hindsight is always 20/20. They've grown and learned, and I've grown and learned. And that's really all I can ask for as an adult with my parents. So that is that. But yes, I started working at their diner. I became the manager, which included being the dishwasher, baker, waitress, cook, all the hats. So I would come in at 8 a.m. and I would bake all the cupcakes and like pies and stuff like that. I would taste test everything. I would get hungry because I never actually ate a breakfast. And then I would stress eat. So I'm like crushing like half a dozen cupcakes before 11 a.m. And then I would start waitressing. So not actually eating any real food between then and there. And I would waitress from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Again, I'm hungry, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed all day. And I'm eating fries and gravy, when I do stop to eat or at the end of my shift, I'd have like a foot-long hot dog with a poutine, maybe some ice cream, and then I'd go home to my boyfriend at the time and pretend that I didn't eat so that I could have supper and not seem like a fat fuck. That was literally going through my head. And then after that, we'd have popcorn. The bowls that we'd each have our own separate bowl, but the bowl is literally bigger than my head, like twice the size. This bowl is massive. So, and of course, like slathering it in margarine and salt. We'll get onto margarine a different day, but like put a pin in that in your brain because that's a trigger word for me. So I did this routine, probably I'd say about like 6 days a week for years. And I was around 22 years old. I got on the scale and I weighed at 211 pounds, like no muscle mass because your girl does not do sports. So I was a blob and I just felt really lanky, but really big. So I was very uncomfortable in my body and I just reached a breaking point. I just had this like gut intuition that this was not living, that there had to be more than this constant cycle of just like disgust and hate and like detachment with food and like pretending. And it was just so sad. So laying in bed one night, I'm watching YouTube, trying to detach before I go to sleep. And I came across this powerlifter chick who had discussed how she had been recently diagnosed with binge eating disorder. And literally when I say a light bulb, the waves crashed, a weight lifted off my shoulder, the world exploded, that all happened in like a blink of a second. And I just bawled my face off because it just like was the first time that from going back to being like that 15 years old that I wanted someone to see me, to diagnose me, to make me feel like I wasn't wrong. That was the first time that I had felt like, okay, this isn't who I am. There's something else at play here. And like, there's something that I can do about it to be okay with myself. Like I can move on, like I can live my life. Like it was just such a relief. And I am just so, so grateful. I have reached out to that girl and like told her my story. And like, again, so, so grateful for her for being vulnerable and sharing that information out on social media. And again, like that's why this podcast exists, because that is the exact same thing I want to do for other people, is just have these aha moments. Like you are not bad. Maybe you're doing something that makes your situation bad or shitty, but like we are all capable of change and like action and stuff like that. So I digress. Okay, so I think after this happened, it was about 2 to 3 days, and then I found a therapist online. I specifically looked up somebody that worked with eating disorders. Her name is Beth. She's a saint. We love her. And then shortly after working with Beth, I started to realize that like everything that I was telling her about how I ate and why I ate was wrong. And I was like, okay, well, like if I don't know how to eat, like what do I eat? How do I eat? So I did a very simple holistic nutrition course, and that kind of got my toe into holistic nutrition. And I'm just very grateful for that experience because it led me to become a nutritional therapy consultant that I am today. Unfortunately though, this part of my story and this part of my journey is where it gets really lonely. I leaned heavily on Beth. She was the only person I could talk to about what I was doing or thinking. Everyone else in my life just had so much going on, and there wasn't really any space to like talk about my struggles or what I was going through, or I felt like I was a burden and didn't really ask for help. So it was kind of like a combination of things. And I was just trying to get better in such a toxic environment that I had built such terrible habits at the diner that they were really hard to overcome because I was always triggered by something, by a routine, by a person, an employee, like all these things going on. The frustrations in my relationship had grew very large, and it just felt like everyone needed me, but no one actually wanted me. I did not feel loved at this point in my life. My eating disorder was the only like air quote person that loved me back, that gave me an escape, that gave me comfort, that cared about me, that wanted to soothe me. So when I started to give up Ed, those like soul-sucking environment that I was in, everything became overwhelmingly difficult because I no longer had Ed as my support, and I didn't have the support of my friends and family. Like, I was like, I'm more alone than I was than when I had an eating disorder. I was like, what the fuck? So the advice that I would give myself if I could go back then is to leave sooner. Leave the relationship that wasn't serving me, quit my job. It's okay if you disappoint your mom. She's a big girl. She's going to move on. Like, because that's what kept me there. I needed to find friends. I just isolated myself constantly, thinking that no one wanted to be around me. And when I was about 25, this is kind of when I did that. I did the stereotypical 25-year-old white girl thing, goes to Australia to like quote unquote find herself. But like, that shit actually works. I had no one else to tend to, no responsibilities, nothing in the fridge or pantry taunting me. I could finally see who Alicia actually was and how she was going to act. And when I say that bitch went to the beach, she journaled, she read her books, she walked to the gym, up hills both ways, literally. And then I got groceries, I cooked beautiful food, I went on dates, I ate ice cream, I laughed, I woke up with the sun, I listened to the waves crash, I fell asleep. Like, this place was my magic bubble, and it was my safe place. And during this time, I got down to 170 pounds, not even trying, literally just being happy. I think it was just like the lack of inflammation, the lack of like overconsumption of carbohydrates and like constantly eating throughout the day. Like, I'd had a routine, I walked everywhere. I really, really was happy, and it showed in my physique. So when I came home after 2 months of doing that, I moved to Regina, Saskatchewan, in with my best friend at the time, and I got a job waitressing at a popular pub. Honestly, that also was a great time for the first year. I walked into a gym unannounced and got subcontracted as a nutrition coach, and that was also my first time dipping my toes into being an NTC, which I'm super proud of myself still for doing that because that was ballsy. And then my therapist, Beth, at that time said, like, girl, you've learned everything that I could ever teach you. Like, my appointments were really short. They were only 30 minutes every second week, and they were nothing really was being said. So she said, like, you know, if you're comfortable, you're free to go. And I was like, okay, well, here I go. And that, like, everything really sounded perfect at this time. But I was still having really big binging episodes very sporadically. So it was less consistent and like not random, because like looking back again, I can see the pattern, but it felt that way. Like I said, looking back, I was trying to make myself small. I was still trying to get skinny. I didn't want to take up a lot of space in the place I was living at. At work, I wanted everyone to like me. Spoiler alert, that fucking backfired in my life. Not hell at work, but like she pretty close. And I just knew all the right answers that Beth had taught me over the years, but I just wasn't passing the test. Like, I kept failing, and it was like, this is open book. Like, what is going on? Okay, so now we're in 2021. I'm 27 years old. I'm back to 195 pounds again. So as you can see, like, it's just like this 20 pound yo-yo diet. I've like of weight my whole life. So when my living situation at this point changed, I moved in with a guy I met from Instagram. Yeah, fucking wild. But he was exactly who I needed in my life. He was an all or nothing guy, okay? He was absolutely crushing 75 hard. He'd done it a couple times. And then, or when he wasn't doing that, he was eating Domino's pizza at midnight. Like I said, all or nothing. But his lack of empathy for out of control actions made me reconsider like my actions. And then like my empathy balanced out his like tunnel vision about a lot of situations. So we were really like good yin and yang, and we were learning a lot from each other. And again, I am so grateful for that DM. But anyway, because I knew all the right answers of like what to do, how to do it, witnessing him live his life in that manner, like coincidentally, and in a way that I wanted to live, made it so much easier for me to execute in that manner as well. I literally no longer felt alone. Like before that, like I had no one else to talk to about like bodybuilding and like bro things and like my relationship with food, like he was somebody that was willing to listen because he had such strong all or nothing opinions on things. He was willing to give them to me and I was willing to dish it back because like this roommate relationship, like I had nothing to lose. So very interesting. But yeah, I now had a partner in crime. And as people, as human beings, we are communal beings, we're tribal beings. We always want to fit in. So being surrounded by somebody that had all these same desires and like ideologies as I did, it was really, really great. It was very fulfilling. I did 75 hard for him for like 25 days or so. I'd lost about 10 pounds before this. And then by the end of the summer, I was down another and I was like 173, 172. I think 172 was my lowest, somewhere around there. My mom, though, back home in Bonnyville, her health was deteriorating from the stress that she was under with the diner. So I had a hero complex. Here I am. I'm getting skinny. I'm doing great. I can help you. And I took my hero complex back to Bonnyville. Well, she didn't want my help the way I imagined, and that rejection led to bad habits. I was in my old stomping ground, and I absolutely, yes, I did gain all the way back. So here we are again. I think the biggest lesson looking back on this now is that your environment does play a big role, but it's more so the people in the environment. So you cannot do this alone. It's really fucking hard to do it alone. I am that person and it's taken me 10 plus years. It's really hard and lonely. And you really do become the people you surround yourself with. So these people pleasing or anticipating other people's needs constantly led me to forget about my own needs and my like own desires. And like I just failed over and over and over again. But like I said at the beginning, that I have had a lot of conversations with my parents about situations like this and about past situations. And we have all come to agreement on certain things. And it makes me very, very grateful because now I am back in Bonnyville. I had left a couple times, then I've come back. And I'm back here with Ash, my best friend, my roommate. And I can live and execute my life in the way that I need to. And my parents and my family here are very receptive to that. They know like that's the way I am essentially. So that has been really like fulfilling, relieving. It's been great. I can go to the diner now. I have full self-control. I hold myself accountable. I am working with new clients in my business. I'm starting this podcast without fear. Well, a little bit of fear, but we're overcoming. And it's been really great. So overall, since we've been talking about weight this whole time, I am back to weighing 189 pounds, but surely, but slowly, that number has been coming down. It's been everything I've been doing, practicing what I preach, and it has been working. I'm super happy. I'm grateful. I'm not hungry. I'm building muscle. I sleep like a baby. My skin looks phenomenal. So I'm doing well now. Back in Bonnyville, back in the old stomping grounds, but we put different boots on, okay? We're stomping around a little bit differently. It's great. So I really wanted to dive into my why and how this time is different and how my journey with Ash and a few other people have really changed my entire identity and the final piece that came to letting go of my eating disorder. And when I say I'm a changed person, baby, I am. I mean it. This is a very long-winded story as to my reason, as to why I do what I do, as to who I am, how I came to be, and why I want to help other people, how I'm going to take my 10 years and condense it down into bite-sized, applicable podcast episodes. There is literally so much more to come. In this season, we're going to be talking about all things self-encompassing. So we're talking about identity, journaling practices, body image, the different levels of nutrition, and more. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for learning about me, for taking the time to figure out who I am, who you're listening to, and who you'll be learning from. This journey is going to take us on a lot of ups and downs, but overall, it's going to open up a world of endless possibilities. That is my goal. And I know it. It's true. It can be true. It can happen because I've lived it. I've done it. So Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast if you want endless possibilities. Obviously, we all do, so clickety-clack, click it. And then also don't hesitate to reach out to me over social media and let me know how this conversation made you feel. And don't forget to show up in the world a little bit more curious, a little bit more intentional, and a lot more loving. Bye.